A cargo bike is not cheap. The most basic sell for about $1,500, the most expensive $8,000 plus. Either way, for many of us, that would be by far and away the most expensive bike we've ever bought. So the question is it worth it? In this video, I'm going to run through how much it costs to keep a cargo bike on the road, including talking to a cargo bike super shop to find out the most common repairs that they see, as well as find out how much this one's going to cost to get serviced. I bought mine, yes, bought in January 2022. It is the Tern GSD S10, the most basic model in the GSD range, and it retails for £4,700 or $4,499. I then added a front rack, wider footrests, plus seats on the back for my passengers. Not cheap. But at the time, my kids were little, and there were multiple occasions each week where we needed an extra car in order to be able to get to the places we needed to. However, having had the good fortune of trying a couple of e-cargo bikes whilst working here at GCN, I went down this route instead. So, 3 years and 1,800 miles later, has it paid for itself? Before we go any further, I do have a confession to make. In the last 3 years, this bike has never been serviced, nor even cleaned. I know, to do it to any of my other bikes would be utterly unthinkable, but this one, it's like a tank. It just keeps on trucking. In fact, all I've done is replaced an inner tube, mended another. I have adjusted the brakes, and I've also replaced the chain tensioner, which gave up about a month ago. But otherwise, that's it. Lubed the chain a couple of times, and here we are. But seeing as you are here, I thought perhaps this was the moment to take it for its first service. I have a feeling this might be expensive. Our local Tern mega dealer. Wish me luck. Morning. What are the most common things that you see go wrong on electric cargo bikes that need replacing?
Oh, goodness. So I guess the things that are different from normal bicycles is that we tend to see a little bit more wear on the chains and on the brakes, so the big significant differences. Brakes, for obvious reasons, the bikes are heavier, and people tend to ride more frequently, worse weather conditions, so they're just getting used a lot more. Chains, I think, generally because people probably aren't maintaining them quite as well as they could do with, but there maybe is a little bit more force going through the chain, but I think generally a grubbier bike gets ridden more regularly, so that grinding pace is more likely to wear out chains a bit more frequently.
I feel like you might be talking to me.
Yeah, quite possibly. Your bike's reasonably clean, but could be cleaner.
It's cleaned itself over the last 3 years. And what about batteries and motors? Because obviously that's the really expensive part, and I think people probably worry. What's the service life on that?
Goodness, I think there's really very little to worry about when we're looking at the proper quality brands. So Shimano, Bafang, Bros, Yamaha, Bosch, they're all super, super good quality. And so the likelihood of you needing to do anything with the motors is incredibly slim. I can genuinely count maybe just over one hand how many motors we've had hassle or problems with over the last more than a decade's worth of of bikes. So it's not probable that you'd be unlucky enough to be the person that has a motor issue. Obviously, all the big brands, at least 2 year guarantees on motors, batteries and cabling. So again, if something goes wrong quickly, very easily resolved. Okay, so I'm $5,000 deep. If I were to sell my cargo bike today, I think I'd probably get about $3,500 back. Because I've got a lot of accessories on there, I think that's reasonable. So we're looking at about £500 a year depreciation. Add in to that, I've insured it, so that's about £150 a year. In terms of running costs, I can't quite believe how little it costs to charge an e-bike. But even bearing in mind the fact that I'm always heavily laden and always in turbo mode, it's still about £10 a year. Then other running costs, as I said, I haven't actually had any yet, bar an inner tube and a puncture repair kit. So about £5 a year. We'll wait and see what the service says. But up to this point,
about £665 per year. Now, what if I was to have bought a second car though? Well, if we take, for example, the UK's apparently most popular hatchback, the Ford Puma. Americans, I don't actually think you have cars this small, unless perhaps you call them roller skates. But anyway, that about 4 years old, you'd be looking at about 11,000. Annual depreciation, even on a second-hand one, is about 1,000 to 1,500. Service plus MOT a year, about 250. Insurance, seeing as I'm old and boring, it's only about £300. Running costs is about 20p a mile. That's for fuel and wear and tear. So if I'd done 1,800 miles, the same as I've done on my cargo bike, although a tiny amount in a car, which does beg the question, how much more would I use it if I'd had it? It would be about £360 all in. So 120 per year. Oh, and lastly, I've also got residence parking permit, which is 224 a year. So for a car, we're looking very roughly at about 2,000 a year. For the bike, 665. And I have been very conservative with the budget for the car here, so it could very well be more. And I have, on the other hand, been very generous with the budget for my e-bike, so it's likely to have been less. If we don't count depreciation, which seems fair given that that directly relates to the car you've bought or the bike you've bought, then we're looking at 165 quid for the e-bike versus 1,000 for the car. Before we get back to the bike shop, I should probably add that whatever they tell me is going to increase my annual budget quite significantly. Prepared for 100 quid a year plus. But we'll find out. Now, before we get there, though, one question I think we should try and answer is whether or not it has been a legitimate second car replacement. And I've got to say, for me, yes, it has, 100%. Every now and then I need to hire a car for work or something, but I'm a member of a car club, don't you know, so that is super easy. And so, yeah, it has been a second car replacement. Have all of those 1,800 miles been miles that I would have driven? No, I've definitely walked less, because bike riding is fun and walking is less so. But most of those miles have definitely been miles that I would or could have driven a car for. And actually, I've got to say, in most cases, this is a first car replacement as well. I can go for weeks without driving now because I'm riding instead. Hit me with bad news.
So your entire total, so obviously you've got that slightly heavier cargo bike bill, is £297. But sell a kidney.
Well, I mean, it's over 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Thank you very much indeed.
Wow, as predicted, unfortunately, that has indeed added 100 quid a year to my running costs. Right now, that hurts. I think when I put it in perspective and balance it out, it's actually not that bad, is it really? So £100 a year, if we compare it to a car, that's absolutely nothing. As Luke said, I probably could have mitigated against some of those repairs had I maybe taken a little bit more care? No, not care, that's wrong. Maybe just if I'd bothered to check chain wear a little bit earlier. And actually, whilst I sort of feel slightly scared because it's an e-cargo bike, really, it wouldn't take much to be able to do that kind of service yourself. Maybe not as thorough, and I wouldn't be feeling quite as relaxed as I am now, but certainly all of those changes I could make myself with moderate skill. So yeah, there it is. Extra £100 a year, so £265 a year running costs updated. So has my cargo bike paid for itself then? Yes, it has. If I had bought a car instead, it would have cost me 4 times as much every year. Had I relied on hiring cars through the car club, still would have been at least double. And that is if we count depreciation into this as well. Have I had more fun riding a cargo bike? Yes, I have. Am I fitter, healthier and happier? Yes, I am. I mean, if you've watched many GCM videos over the years, you will know that I'm a huge fan of cargo bikes, particularly compact ones like this that aren't that much bigger than a normal bike and can be stored on their end. Yeah, they're not for everyone. Some people will still struggle to store them. I think it probably helps if you live in a city, although, having said that, I've definitely heard from a lot of people for whom they work brilliantly despite living in rural locations. Apart from that initial cost, I cannot see the downsides. I've had 2 incidents in 3 years, one of which someone did an emergency stop in a car behind because they weren't looking and hadn't seen that I had had to stop at a pedestrian crossing. That was a little bit freaky. And another one, a guy tried to intimidate me and my kids using his car, presumably because he's an absolute but I never got to the bottom of that one. Anyway, like I say, I'm a huge fan. Let me know your thoughts. Have you already taken the plunge on cargo bikes? Are you thinking about doing so? Get involved in the comment section down below. Be super interested to hear your thoughts. Please, before leaving though, give the video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to GCN if you don't already.